How are we doing today? So, some people have seen a video I made on my YouTube page where I had created a routine to lay out horizontal directional drills. Since making that many years ago, I've developed a much better workflow that doesn't use any special routines, just functionality that's within the Civil 3D environment. So I've been promising people that I would show them how this kind of went about, and it's so much better. So here's the example I'm going to be working with. It's kind of hard to follow with the little bit of information that's shown, but essentially this is a two-lane interstate where you see the contours kind of sparse is the two lanes. Then there's a shoulder that drops off on both sides. Then where this fence line is and this is a right-of-way. So the idea is we're going to want to do a horizontal directional drill across this. I'm going to assume that a lot of you guys watching this know at least a little bit about Civil 3D. I've set up some views here so we can toggle between the plan view and the profile. So I'm just going to switch to the profile view real quick so you can see. So I haven't used any real magic here so far. This is your profile. You can kind of see the two lanes there. One's crowned in the middle, one's kind of kicked to the left, and then there's a swell on either side, and then of course out here is where you would be outside of your right-of-ways. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to the plan view, and I'm going to try to decide where we want to have our entry and exit pit, so maybe here and here. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to use a pipe network with a structure. So here I'm going to come in to edit this network. Had previously set this up. So just you would normally start this out with just creating an alignment. That's what this line here is. I've added some labels to it, label style for the stations, and I've done a little bit of setup, but I expect you to sort of do this on your own. So I created essentially some structures. The thing I like about the structures is the fact that if I pop one in here, let's see, right, like this would is an object that Civil 3D thinks is a structure, but we're sort of using it as a coordination point between the plan and the profile. So instead of it being an eccentric manhole, I've now gone into a style and created a style for my HDD objects, and I can go into the structure properties here and show you what I'm talking about. And this HDD objects, instead of letting it be the manhole, I've just told it that in the plan I want it to look like this circle, and the profile I want it to look like this circle, and that's going to be sort of a way to coordinate between the plan and the profile, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. That'll save you a little bit of effort in setting these things up. Let's imagine that I wanted my entry point to be here. And then with this label style, you see I can get the elevation. Of course, I've set up this label style as well. Northern, easting, offset. Don't really need the offset. We're going to be on the alignment the whole entire time. And then the label for that is go to the structure properties. I can just say I want this to be my entrance point. Okay. So there you go. I've got a label for my entrance point. Let's do the same thing with the exit point. Now, one thing I wanted to mention: this eccentric manholes and other structures just have a little bit more functionality than if you just dropped in a null structure. You would want to drop in a null structure, I guess, naturally, but again, I just feel like I get more functionality. Some of the things that I want to be able to do with some of the projects I use these for. And then what I end up doing is I come into right here, and I tell this will save you a lot of time. I switched the null structure to just automatically come in with the style of the HDD objects. That way I don't have to change the style every time I pop in a structure. It just automatically does that for me. And then I can come into the properties of the actual pipe network, and I can say, well, hey, when I bring in a structure, I want it to be the label style that I've made to be the different things. In fact, okay. So that just saves me a step. Same way in the profile, using the same label style. So now when I add the structure to the profile, it will come in with that label style as well. So it just makes it more automated. Now let's try to do an exit point over here. Let's say our exit point we want to be about here. Okay. And I'm just going to come into the properties of the structure, and I'm going to call this exit. Okay. So now these points I want to translate to the profile, right? So let's just switch to our profile view. And then I'm going to say, okay, profile view, I want you it actually doesn't have the default yet. Well, that's easy enough. We can add this structure. Just makes it a little bit extra step. You can pick the structure over here and just say draw parts in profile view. Click it here. Now when I come back to the profile view, there it is. Now once you've added one, now I can come back to my profile view properties, and pipe networks will be there. And I can just say, yeah, I want to show the other guy too. Now when you add it that way, you actually have to add the label as well. So it's actually a lot less work to be able to add it through the selecting them in the plan view. Now normally when I work on this on my own, I'll have multiple screens, and so I can just pick them in the plan view, come over to the profile screen, and add them that way, and they'll come in with the labels and everything. So it's a lot more easy, a lot more streamlined. So now I want to lay out my directional drill that would go from these 2 points, right? So we can simply come up to the home. We're gonna profile creation tools. We're gonna say we want to create that in this profile, and then we get to name it. So here, I'll just call this demo. Okay, and then I've got a style set up for design profile, so I'm just gonna have that highlighted. You can customize it however you would like. So once you get here, you can simply draw in a very nice, neat, quick profile. Now of course we don't know, I'm going to erase the default styles that come in. So we know that this doesn't have the exact dimensions that we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I attach this profile to my entry point, so at least I know it starts where I want it to. Now it ends where I want it to. Now what you could simply do to get the slopes here, say a 12 degree and a 13 degree entry and exit angle. It's pretty simple. Once I come into the profile, I can hit this button. This gives me a readout of the geometry that's associated with this. Now I sort of hate it, but I can't figure out a way to get this to describe it other than slope. So what we need to know is, say on this end we want a 12 degree slope. So we have to just simply go to a calculator, type in 12 degree, hit our tan button. So the slope for a 12 degree in percentage is 21.25 or 21.26. So So we come in here to our dialog, and if you select the grayed out with the negative and put in negative 21.26, it'll actually hold the entrance point, but it'll make the slope 21.26. Okay, let's do the same thing for a 13% grade. Tangent 23.09. Get here 23.09. Boom. So now we know that the line we have here has a 12-degree entrance and a 12-degree exit. I'm going to show you a little bit more about labeling in a second. Okay, so we want to add some vertical curves here. If you come up here, and come down to here, free circular curve, PI based, you can just click here and make your circular curve. I'm just going to use 250 right now. Okay, so that draws in a curve with a 250 radius. I can do it again. Let's over here, I want to draw in a 300-foot curve. See, so I have my profile laid out very easily here, right? And what's cool is the fact that this is Civil 3D. I can modify this. If I use these arrows, I'll actually keep my same entrance slope. So I can make this profile as deep as I want. Still maintaining good geometry. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about label styles for the profile. We can actually modify these label styles to say all kinds of different things. Like right now, this is only labeling the slope. What if we wanted to know the length of this segment? It's pretty simple. We can come into the edit labels. See, the thing that's labeling the slope is these lines, and right now it's using the standard style. We can make our own style that labels everything we want it to. And we could make this not even plot. This could be for personal information or for design. So I'm gonna go in to edit this, and right now I'm getting the tangent grade. Okay, let's say I wanted to know the length. Okay, so the tangent slope length. There's actually a horizontal length, which may be important. You know, that would be the length along the stations. But let's talk about the slope length for a minute. Let's make it to the nearest hundredth of a foot. I'm going to throw her in there. Actually want it to be after. And then maybe I want to put in front of it L equals and put the little foot marker behind it. Okay, so okay. See, so now I have a label that labels the length of that line. And I might even usually put 3D length because I like to know that this is the slope length. A good important feature for this is, say this had a casing. Well, you would want to know that your casing would be at least as long as this. I also like to do my designs with at least 2 rod lengths before I start a vertical curve. That's just sort of a rule of thumb I use. So what's really nice about this is we could totally customize this to label all the features we want in a profile. I just wanted to give you a little introduction as to how some of these can be modified. Now once you say get a whole slew of labels that maybe labels your VPCs, your VPTs, your curves, everything you want it to do, you want it to be able to label those automatically. So what you could do is you could actually set those up as a label set. And if I come in to edit labels, you can then set up that label set. This one I happen to have called HDD 2016. Say okay, it's actually going to bring in all those labels that's part of that label set. And I don't like this midpoint, so I'm going to take it out. Now the only thing you need to remember, actually that's not even here. So I'm going to say okay, now this may be something you have set up in a way where you want this on your construction drawing. So this label set, actually I have set up to label the entry and exit angle in not only percent but degrees. it labels the entrance and exit points, and this is a good check to do with your nodes here that you have used, or your structures rather. Your VPCs where they start and stop, your curvature. So you pretty much have everything you need here. Now, how does this pertain back to your plan view? And I'll show you. So I'm going to go back to the plan view. Okay. So there's actually a way to bring those points back to this plan view. And it's through labels. So what I could do is say I want those vertical points in my profile back into my plan view, so where I can see where they actually are in the plan view. One of the things that you can actually label is called a profile geometry point. Okay. So right now I'm just going to use the standard, and I'm going to add it. And basically what it does is it says, alright, well, what profile are you wanting to pull from? I'm going to say demo, because that's what we're using in this example. I'll go ahead and turn all these off, but the place where the tangent meets the curve and where the curve meets the tangent is the VPCs and the VPTs, and I'm just going to say OK. And those come in with the standard style, which I think right now I have, yeah, just as a tick with a station number. So that's what you actually see here. This is one of your objects. So just knowing you have the ability, and of course this is all dynamic. If I modified the profile, these locations would move. Okay, but similarly to the way I showed you in the plan view, in the profile view where you could have a label set, you actually could set up a series of labels that labeled all these objects with particular labels and then save those as a label set. So I'll show you how that works. Now the only thing you got to be careful of with the label set is whenever you bring in a label set, it erases all the labels you currently have set up, which would include your station, minor and major stations. So you just want to make sure that you include in your label set the station number labels as well, so that when it goes to overwrite what's there, it's actually replacing it with the things you want. So now the difference with the label set is every time it needs to know what profile you're wanting to pull this data from for each object it's trying to create. So you're going to get this series of boxes where it's basically saying, you know, what profile are you talking about for this object we're trying to place. So in each one of these you'll just click the profile you're interested in, and then it brings all those in. So you see these profile geometry points. One's for your PID on either side, which is your exit and entrance, and then your PPCs and VPTs. And then of course, even though it would replace this, we added them to the label set, so now it doesn't for the label stations. So now when I bring these in, I now have these markers, VPT, VPC, and those are dynamic. If I modified the profile, those points will move here in the plan view. So I don't think you can do better than that because it gives you some versatility. Now I like to add an extra step. I like to actually put these structures, and I'll show you why, the entrance and exit structures, on every point that's along our line. So let's do that. I come back to my structure dialog. I got it set to place structures only, and I'm actually going to place that snapping to every one of these geometry points. Okay, so I've already got that one. Let me see one, I think. Is it here? Yes, it is. Okay. And I'll show you why I'm doing this in a minute. Now myself, I don't actually use the alignment labels or the profile labels. I like to use these structures instead, because to me these structures, they kind of tie the two together, the plan and the profile. So let's go back to our actually first, before I go there, I'm going to label these. So even though I'm not showing you as part of this exercise how to set up all those label styles, and I'm not really passing out the template to people, I'm kind of giving you an idea of what you can do with Civil 3D, you know, if you put in the time to create those label styles like you want. So here we are. I've got my points all now labeled with something intelligent that will label the station, the elevation, so on and so forth. Now the only problem is right now, if I come back to the profile, okay, you see these points aren't added. So I'll go in here and I add them. Okay. And then of course when they first come in, they're not labeled. We may not care about labeling, we just want to know where they are. Now the thing is, Civil 3D thinks these are structures. So the two ticks you have here, one is actually for the rim and one is for the invert. We just need to move the invert low enough such that we can put the top of this so-called structure to the point we're trying to go to. Obviously the rim of the structure can't be lower than the invert of the structure. So the first thing I do is I move the so-called invert below the point I want to be on, and then that way I can move the top to match whatever the BPC or the BPT elevation is. Okay, so now I have all my, oh actually I missed one here. There you go. See, in any one of these, if I did in fact want to label them, I would simply add a label, change it to the style. Don't necessarily need it, but I could do that right there. Now the only difference is if you do move these, let's say I change my design, these points aren't going to move. You'd have to first go to the plan view, move them on top of the markers there, then come to the profile view and move just by a simple grip up and down here. But it's important to me to have this extra step, and why? Okay, I'm going to create the table, and this is a table that I like to put on, especially on larger type drills. I like to put on my plans. So let's add a structure table, type network, structure, and demo. I could pick a style I have set up here, but I just want to show you kind of how this works. So picking a table here. Okay, so you see it's really trying to work with the structures, the sumps, whatever. But I have a table style you could set up that actually is set up more along the lines of my HDD point information. Okay, and that's going to look something like this. And in your table, you can tell it, I want to organize these based on one of these columns, and I ended up basing it on the station column. So here I have all the points, and it's all dynamic. So if I make any modifications to the plan, I end up, these things are automatically updated in here, and then this gives me everything you would need for that geometry: the BPCs, T's, the station, the northings, eastings, and elevations. So To me, this is just a much better solution than the video I created many years back. The modification is dynamic. A lot of things were labeled for you. I just don't think you can beat that. It's sort of the same situation as you had in the old LDD days. Whenever you wanted to modify something, you had to recreate it, versus being able to modify the intelligent data of the objects, you know, with grips and being able to key in certain values. So I hope this helps you guys, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Thank you.